Okay, notice there is no affiliate link below because I'm not affiliate and I really don't care which model you get. I just want to make sure that you get the right one and you don't have any regrets and you're not buying something that I think is cool and then you have to return it, okay? I do not have electric bike myself. So it was tough for me to start making this video because I'm like, who am I to be recommending a bike that I don't own, okay? So this video is not about recommending a bike, it is about helping you select one of the 3 trims of the Lectric branded bike. And full disclosure, the reason why I personally did not get an electric bike is not because I don't like the name or the brand or the company or their products. It's because, honestly, I didn't like the look of the bike. It just seemed kind of generic to me, okay? And for many years, about over 8 years, I've wanted a juiced bike. And that's what that yellow one here is. And so when I had a chance to get an electric bike, I jumped on it and I got the juice bike. It's a single gear, it's not gonna be for most people. However, that's what I went with. I understand that most people don't have the same needs or wants or tolerance or interests as I do, but I wanted to talk about the Lectric brand to help people decide which of the models they should get, because I know that's a very popular brand and people are looking at that who may not necessarily know too much about bikes or who may not be too technical or understanding how you need to have e-bike type of questions versus just a bike type of question. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, by the end of this video, we're hoping that you can be able to determine which of the electric bikes that you should be getting. And the more honest you are with yourself about how you will be using the bike, how you will be using it, not how you want to be using it, the easier it will be. With the different levels or different trims of the electric bikes, they are fairly different from one another. So it should be pretty easy to determine which one to get. But for a lot of you, or a lot of everyone who's looking to get e-bikes these days, a lot of e-bike buyers aren't cyclists by nature or haven't been riding bikes a lot at all and are new to riding bikes and found that electric bikes may be a way for them to get into it. So I understand that it may be a little bit overwhelming, so we're gonna go over that. The format of this video is I'm going to start with the conclusion first, and that is this. The Lectric 3.0 is by default what you should be thinking of as you're watching this video, and then you can ask yourself questions to determine if you're gonna deviate from the 3.0 to the Lite or to the Premium. And I think that's how we should start, and then we're gonna go through each model and talk about not flaws, but things that may not be so great for the use of that bike and things that would be excellent for that bike. And so we're gonna start with 3 trims, the Lite, the 3.0, and the Premium. There is a 2.0, I would not recommend that only because the price difference is very minimal and the 3.0 exceeds that and is the newer model of the 2.0. So again, it's gonna be Lite, 3.0, and Premium, okay? 3.0 being the default. So why would you want the Lite? Okay, so the Lite, just so you're aware, is gonna be not the best value bike of the 3 trims, really. Even though it's the cheapest, it's not gonna be the best value. The best value is really gonna be the 3.0 because of what you get. For the Lite version, just know that it is a single gear. You do have a smaller motor. However, it is a lighter bike. And one of the main reasons or regrets that people have when they buy e-bikes is that they're too heavy. They're too heavy. They find out that the bikes are too heavy. They can't lift it into their trunk. They can't lift it onto their rack. They can't carry it or for whatever reason, or when they fold it up, they can't carry it into their apartment or through the elevator, and it's just too heavy. So you wanna really be concerned about the weight of it and be aware of that. And the Lite version is very light for an electric bike. An electric bike these days, most of them are gonna be kind of the budget fat tire bikes, and they range in weight between 65 pounds to 80 pounds. And the electric Lite is well under that. It's well under that, it's in the 40s. If weight is a concern, then you would definitely look highly into the Lite version. And don't oversee that because these bikes, if you're only researching on YouTube, you're not having a good sense of the size of these bikes. And again, you want to really think about how you're going to transport the bike if that's important to you. Some of us only going to be riding the bike in our neighborhood and never plan to put it in or on or behind the car at all, in which case you do have the luxury of getting a heavier bike or a larger bike as long as it fits you. Okay. The Lite has a 350 watt motor, which is smaller than the standard of bikes these days, which is going to be closer to 500 or 750 watts. But don't oversee that, because due to the weight of the bike, it is more efficient. So it doesn't require as big of a motor to propel it in the same performance level. Okay, so don't think, oh, it's only 350 watts, everything else has 500 or 750 watts, and mine's just only 350, this is like really weak. It's not like that, okay? So don't think that if you get the Lite, you're somehow compromising. Okay, it has, the advantage is the weight. Lectric and other brands who are selling their single gear bikes, such as Juiced, this one's single gear, they're gonna say, oh, it's only single gear, but that's great because then it weighs less and there's less maintenance, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, of course. But generally speaking, for most people, it's gonna be better to have more gears than only one gear, okay? So don't kid yourself and think, oh, it's less maintenance, it's less weight. The weight is pretty negligible between a single gear and a multi-gear bike, and maintenance, it's not gonna be that big of a deal. So do not let that kind of reasoning sway you into not getting a geared bike versus a non-geared bike. Okay, if you have any hills, I'm in San Francisco and there are actual hills here. On YouTube, I've seen all these reviews of people going on hills, and then I'm watching the video, I'm like, where's the hill? This is like a tiny little incline. If you have a tiny little incline, then the Lite, I'm sure, will do just fine. But if you actually have actual hills that require gears, then the Lite may not be something that you wanna use. Now let's go to the premium, okay? That's the other end of the scale. For the premium bike, do not think, oh, I have a big budget, I wanna get the best level electric bike, and I'm set on electric, and I wanna get the best of the best, and therefore I wanna get premium. People who do that tend to find, again, it's too heavy. It's too heavy. So that bike, I believe, is over 80 pounds. So it is significantly heavier. I mean, almost about twice the weight of the Lite. So if you're gonna be transporting that, even if you have a hitch rack, and even if you're a strong guy or a girl, getting it on the rack may be a bigger deal. And when you're folding a bike that's as heavy as that, it's not gonna be an easy thing to do, okay? So the weight for the premium is a big deal for most people, and you should highly, highly consider that. Again, to better understand the sheer size of the premium, understand that that is a true fat tire bike, and it has fat tires of 4 inches. Let's contrast that with the 3.0, 2.0, and Lite. Okay, while the premium has 4-inch wide tires, okay, 4 inches is wider than this motor scooter. Okay, this is also 4 inches. Okay, that tire is again wider than the motor scooter tire. Okay, so 4 inches is a lot. The premium has 4 inches. The 3.0 has 3-inch tires. Okay, so slightly less, and I think that's a significant number. The Lite is 2.4, or there's a 2.6 wide tire, which is closer to the size of a mountain bike tire. Okay, you're not gonna find road bike tires on XP electric bikes, but the Lite is gonna be the narrowest tire, again, of 2 point something, 2.4 or 2.6, versus 3.0 is 3-inch wide and premium is 4 inches wide. Okay, so drastic difference. As far as handling, people are gonna say, oh, the wider one is gonna be more stable. Yes, it's more stable. That's why they're normally on, like, you know, those things, but even these things have tires that are less wide than that guy. Okay, so don't kid yourself. I mean, it's a bicycle. If you're riding normal speeds of a bicycle, even at max 20 to 25, maybe even 28 miles an hour, you don't really need 4.0 wide tires. Okay, I think the whole fat tire thing is a fad and is not really going to last too long. I think people are going to realize that the efficiency of it is not great. It's actually worse than if it were narrower, and they may not necessarily be more durable than ones that are narrower. And so I think the fat tire thing is gonna kind of go away, and we're gonna see bikes that are more in the 3.0 range or less. So again, don't get oversold on the whole fat tire, bigger is better mentality. The great thing about the premium that is actually pretty amazing and impressed me quite a bit, the fact that it is mid-drive. So for those who may be new to this, there is generally there's hub drive and then there's mid drive. The mid drives tend to be a little bit more efficient, a little bit better on hills, and is generally a higher end product. And to have a mid drive bike that is under $2,200 and then the premium is way under $2,000 is actually amazing. So in that sense, it's good value, excellent value actually. But you don't want to be getting something only because it's excellent value. You want to be getting something because it matches you, okay? And so let's talk about the 3.0 as far as the accessories and maybe the pricing, since we're kind of touching on that. The price difference between the Lite and the 3.0 is only $200. Okay, $200, it's not chump change, it's $200, okay? But what are you getting for $200? You're getting suspension, okay? You're getting a little bit wider tires, which may or not be a good thing for you. But one thing that you're getting also is the gears that we talked about. And the fourth thing that you're getting with the 3.0 versus the Lite is going to be the load capacity on the rear rack that is welded into the frame. So the rack is part of the frame on the 3.0. The Lite does not have a rack that's built in. So you'd have to buy that separately if you were to store things, okay? The rack that you're gonna put on the Lite would not support an adult person. It may, but you probably don't wanna do that, it's not rated for it. But the XP 3.0 are rated for a passenger. So if a passenger is ideal and important to you, then go for the 3.0. You can exclude the Lite right away. The weight capacity for the back rear rack on the premium is actually only 55 pounds. So it's not designed for a normal adult as the 3.0 is. Some of you might be thinking, I have to have a passenger. I therefore cannot have the Lite and will need the 3.0. If the passenger is the only reason that you wanna get those bikes, I urge you to rethink the whole passenger thing, okay? Number one, Lectric has a feature called the passenger mode that basically reduces the speed to 10 miles per hour. And do their calculations or engineering, whatever, they feel that 10 miles an hour is a level at which the rider or driver will not be overwhelming and burning out the motor. So when you have a passenger, especially an adult passenger who's under 150 pounds, which is what the rack is rated for, you are putting a lot of strain on the bike and you're not, I swear, you're not gonna be able to go up a hill, an actual hill. Okay, maybe those little inclines you see on YouTube, but not an actual hill. And it may look cute and everything and fun on YouTube. And even myself was like, how cool would it be if I had my wife on, the back of this thing? And in reality, we're not really gonna use it like that. For my particular bike, this Juiced, I added this pad, and this bike is actually not rated for passengers at all, but the rack is rated for 65 pounds, and I have 2 kids who are each under 65 pounds, so I will take one of them at a time on that bike as for fun, it's kind of cute kind of thing, but it's not a commuter sort of bike. So be honest with yourself. Are you really gonna commute or go long distance with an adult on the back? Most adults would rather ride their own bike, whether it's an e-bike or not an e-bike, alongside you as opposed to riding behind you. And the view from the back seat that is lower than your front seat, it's not a very good view and you're not going very fast. So it's more for entertainment purposes only, to be very honest. But if you find otherwise, then that's totally fine. I'm not gonna argue with you, but just make sure that you do consider that and think about that in detail. And again, be very honest with yourself about passengers. Earlier, I talked about how you're gonna actually use the bike and not how you want to use the bike. Because you're watching all these videos on YouTube and everything looks so cool and you're like, oh, I want to do that. I want to go on trails. I want to go really fast down the hill. And then everyone's talking about speed and going over 25 miles an hour. I mean, think about logistically and practically how you're actually going to use the bike, because a lot of us are going to be using the bike very different from one another. And to get the same bike and apply it in a different scenario is probably not going to be the best suited for you. So be very honest about how you're going to use the bike, okay? And that touches on another point that most of you may not want an electric bike at all. I know, we're gonna have a video on that specifically, and it's gonna save you like $2,000. But I highly recommend that if you haven't ridden a bike for like 15 years, which is a vast majority of people who have gotten into e-bikes, I highly, highly recommend that you take the bike that you have, you dust it off, and you just ride it for a couple hours. It doesn't matter where, doesn't matter where you're going, doesn't matter who you're going with, just ride it and just make sure that you're okay riding a bicycle. And we're talking about not how hard it is to ride the bicycle, because we know the electric bikes are going to give you some advantage with the electric power. But we're talking about the time that you have. You know, if you're a parent with young kids, maybe you'd love to go out on a bike, but in practical reality, you may not have that opportunity hours at a time. Or maybe you would love to go on these trails, but your car doesn't have a hitch and you don't yet have a rack, or don't really plan to, or don't realize that a hitch and a rack combined could cost easily $500, $700, $1,000. So really think about the actual use of the bike. Very, very important. To summarize again, 3.0 should be your default. It has gears, it has suspension, it has load capacity, and is kind of in the middle ground as far as the weight. The Lite is very, very light. The name is very suitable. And if you need the weight to be low, and don't underestimate the weight of these bikes because they're very, very heavy generally, then the Lite may be the way to go. If you are looking for something high end, don't use that as the only reason to get the premium. Okay, again, most people are going to want the 3.0. The premium is vastly heavier than the 3.0. So unless you know what a mid-drive is and you are specifically looking for a mid-drive bike, then I would not really recommend the premium. The premium is going to be not for very many people. As far as popularity of matching of bikes to people that I think should own them, I think the 3.0 will be matching most people, and the Lite will fit very well with the people who realize and know that the Lite is what they want. If you're thinking, oh, I want to start with the Lite and upgrade and get the accessories to be as much as the 3.0 as I can, do not do that, okay? Because number one, there are certain things that you can't really change easily, and that is the motor size, and that is the controller. The controller of the Lite limits the bike to 20 miles per hour. Okay, it's not a class 3 bike. You're not gonna be able to go faster than the 3.0 or the premium. Okay, so be very aware of the speed limitations of the Lite. Don't be very concerned about it being slow and only 20 miles an hour. 20 miles an hour, number one, is the limit for an assisted bike. And number two, 20 miles an hour is fairly quick for a bicycle. If you're riding your regular bicycle and you're going 20 miles an hour, and you just know that, oh, also another major thing is bicycle helmets, most of them are rated for 20 miles an hour. So if you're going faster than 20 miles an hour, that is fairly fast objectively, according to society and insurance companies and companies who make these helmets. We're gonna have a video about e-bike helmets, but just be aware of the speed. 20 miles an hour is very sufficient. You don't necessarily need to go faster just because the guy next door is going faster. Okay. One thing about suspension, I personally feel that suspension is overrated. I know a lot of people are like, I gotta have suspension, otherwise it's gonna feel really bumpy. Yes, but suspension adds weight and therefore reduces performance. Any sort of substantial weight is gonna reduce performance and handling of the bike or car or motorcycle or whatever it is that you're riding, and generally adds to the cost. So if you find that the Lite fits you perfectly, but you're like, I wish it had suspension, and that's the only thing deterring you from getting the Lite, get the Lite. And if you really want suspension, then you can pay like 20 bucks for a seat post that has suspension and just work with that. If you're riding primarily on paved roads, you really do not need suspension. Even if you have some rougher areas, if you're not too sensitive, then again, you're not really need suspension. I think a lot of the whole suspension, I need suspension kind of mindset is because a lot of new riders are just not used to sitting on a narrow, hard seat. And that's part of riding a bicycle. So you may just get used to it or get an upgraded seat, like I said, for about 20 bucks. And then you can use the existing saddle and just put that on there, and then it's very easy to install and you're good to go, okay? I do wish that the 3.0 had a version with just a regular fork without suspension, but unfortunately that's not the case. It is a selling point, but if you're going on hills and you're going on paved roads, you actually don't want suspension. Again, it adds to the weight, and when you're going up hills and you have suspension, not all your I don't get too technical about it, but not all of your force will be sent to accelerating the bike uphill. A lot of it's going to be absorbed by the suspension, unfortunately. And that's just the nature of having suspension on a bicycle. Okay, if you get the Lectric Lite, do not load it with the carry package. Lectric sells a carry package that has a front rack, a rear rack, and a pannier system. You're ruining the entire benefit of having a lightweight bike by adding more weight to it. Okay, so do not do that, and you're offsetting also the cost of the bike that you're supposedly saving by getting the light version. If you're adding additional weight, it's going to ruin the performance of it as a lightweight bike, and you're also not adding any more power. So you're really doing yourself a disservice by having additional weight on the light version. If you plan to carry cargo at all, even if it's not a person and it's like groceries or a backpack or something like that, then really you do want to get the XP 3.0. I'm just gonna carry something really light, like a backpack with a lunch in it. Can I still get away with the light? Sure. If you're going flats and you really have no inclines, then maybe. Okay, but the weight of the rack itself has some weight to it. The front rack, the rear rack, the bag, and that's not taking into account the contents. And the rack system has a capacity, I think the rear rack has a capacity of 30 pounds. So you can potentially add up to 30 pounds, which is pretty heavy relative to the weight of the bike, which is 46 pounds. I go without saying, but I just gotta tell you, do not be one of those people who buys a second battery for the Lectric Lite, okay? That is way too much weight and makes it way inefficient. For those who may not be aware, to get twice the range for a bike, an e-bike or an EV, you're gonna need way more than twice the capacity, way more than twice the amp hours than to get twice the range. And that is because a empty battery doesn't weigh any less than a full battery. So you're carrying around all this weight, and the bigger the battery, the less efficient it becomes because it needs to propel its additional weight before you see any improvement in range whatsoever. So do not do that. Please don't do that. Okay, then who is the Lite version for? Okay, if you're going for an outing in your neighborhood, okay, the Lite has the smallest capacity battery. Not just the smallest of all the electric bikes, but fairly small in general for an e-bike. Okay, you're not going very far with the Lite version. So don't think that you're gonna be going around with your friends who have electric bikes or road bikes or mountain bikes and keeping up with them as far as making a day out of it. It's not that kind of bike. It's gonna be something that's kind of fun to be running around the neighborhood, and maybe you wanna run some errands in your neighborhood and you live in flat areas and you just think it would be cool. It is not something that you're gonna be carrying passengers, you're not gonna be carrying big loads, you're not gonna be carrying anything for even yourself for long distances whatsoever. Okay, this is a low range bike that is for fun, and it's not really for utility. It may be for commute, but for very small percentage of people who are commuting places that are very close. Because remember, you gotta double back, right? I mean, you're gonna go one way and then you gotta go the other way. Round trip has to be within the range of the battery. Some of you might be saying, hey, wait, the Lite is such a lightweight bike that if it does run out of juice, I can just ride it as a regular bike. Yes, probably. I have no firsthand experience, so I'm not gonna say one way or the other, but from what people have said, they can ride it as a regular bike. I can't say because, I mean, I'm not gonna tell you that that's for sure, because some of the people who are saying that may be trying to sell you the bike, or they may be trying to justify why it's a good idea that they bought the bike themselves and kind of talking themselves into it. So I can't tell you because I don't own the bike. But of all electric bikes, generally, fat tire bikes or just budget bikes in general that are within the $1,000 to $1,800 range, this bike is well below $1,000 and is well below the overall weight of bikes in its category. So if any bike is going to be able to be ridden without power in the battery, then that would be it. Okay. One thing, I don't want you to misunderstand that you should or could be riding a bike without a battery. I mean, without juice in the battery. The batteries, surprisingly, have a structural component. So if you're riding your bicycle, your electric bike, without the battery in it, then that can bend the frame. I don't know that for certain, but I know that there's other brands where people have tested their bikes without a battery when it's integrated into the down tube, and it bends the frame. So that's not something I would want to risk, and definitely not something I would ask you to test. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me using the comments below, or if you have one of those bikes already, tell me why you love it, why you hate it. Be great to hear from you. All right, take care. See you next time.